whether you're a nonprofit or you're a company, in your structure, you always need to be running your profit and loss statement and making sure you're a sustainable enterprise. So social entrepreneurship today, very broadly speaking, A, you're entrepreneurial. You might be building something from scratch. And B, social impact is central to what you're doing. Now, what is the structure? Could you be a nonprofit? Could you be a regular company? Could you be a B Corp? It's actually at this point in time in our world, that's all possible. The definition is very broad. And you'll talk to some people that will say, social entrepreneurship is nonprofit. That's not true. And then you'll talk to some people that will say, social entrepreneurship is me going into a company and trying to be a entrepreneur. That's where I differ and say entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship are not the same thing. Entrepreneurship does mean, generally speaking, you're building something new, you're building it from scratch. If you're entrepreneurship, you might be inside of a company or inside of a nonprofit trying to do something good. I think what we're talking about today is really purely social entrepreneurship and the idea that you're an entrepreneur, but you have social impact goals as well. And what do those goals need to be? They could be part of the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals, which Jade may talk about, or they could be one singular issue of where you're trying to make an impact. You could be going after a number of goals, but it has to be inherently a part of what you're creating and building. What it can't be is that old definition of corporate social responsibility, in my mind, was a company saying, well, we can make cigarettes, but we have a foundation and we're going to do some good community work. That I don't consider social entrepreneurship. Social entrepreneurship is when you've created something from the very beginning where social impact is central and important to what you're doing. It's not on the side. It's not just for the foundation to think about. It's not we're a company, but hey, we do community service. All of that is an important activity, but that's not social entrepreneurship. Social entrepreneurship is truly baked in to whatever structure and whatever company mission you create at the very beginning. So that's a quick overview. I'll pass it back to Rachel and Annie and Grace.
Thank you, Sarah. That was a great introduction that really helps to frame our discussion today. So I guess to kick off with our first questions, by the way, attendees can feel free to send questions to the chat. But I guess we wanted to cover first, how can we create a better future? And secondly, later on, how can we take meaningful and effective action? So I guess our first question for you guys is, how have social enterprises found unique solutions to solve key issues? And specifically, how is the UN's SDGs or whatever goals that you follow intertwined with your work? And I guess maybe Sarah or Jade, do you want to kick off the discussion?
Yeah, sure. I'm really passionate about the SDGs. I think, so I have a nonprofit called Entertainment for Change, and it came from the Emerson Green Gala, and which was the celebration of Earth Day through various forms of artistic expression, because I was an environmental activist. My mom has been in sustainable fashion since the 90s, so I've kind of watched her take something that wasn't existing before and do the social, it really wasn't social entrepreneurship when I was growing up, and I was kind of the weird kid in school eating weird food and wearing weird clothes, and my mom was like, but this is important, and created a company. And so I watched her really build something from the ground up and brings a vision into real life. So for me, I always believed anything was possible, and I was just a theater kid. But I always had this entrepreneurial bug. And when I was in college, did the Green Gala, started Entertainment for Change, and when I graduated, I truly came into New York City, and I was like, I'm going to change the world through art. And everyone was like, that's so cute. What does that mean? What is changing the world even, what? And I came across the Sustainable Development Goals, and I just felt like they were really beautiful and clear and concise framework for what we're all working on globally, while allowing each individual to put their voice behind something specific, and it still be this like collective vision for what it means to have a better world. Because I feel like to have a better world can mean so many things, but I think the United Nations did a very good job kind of putting it in a framework, and I see it almost as cheesy as it is, but I see it as this like kind of sunset that we're all driving towards, and we're maybe all in different cars, and they're all different colors, and they all have different stickers all over them, but we're all trying to get to the same place. So everything, all of the creative initiatives that we do at Entertainment for Change, all of the work that we produce, there's some education around either one of the SDGs or all of them, because I feel that you need all of them. You can't have one without the other. So yeah.
I love where Jade is with this, which I think is the UN creating so pieces around even just read them. My internet looks like unstable. Do you have me? Is it stable, unstable? I'm hopefully I'm not frozen, but it's giving me the unstable mark, which is not good. What the SDGs do is allow someone who's trying to think about where they might want to make an impact. It allows you to literally like just go look at them and read. And are you drawn to the idea of life above land and taking care of it, life below water, gender equality? I mean, it's taken these huge global issues and framed them in a very friendly way. And it's not, in my mind, that's not just for the corporate world to look at. The framing's not just for corporations. I think the framing is actually really great for entrepreneurs, and to think through, what do I want to tackle? Is it 17, right? Is it this one or these two? And so I really encourage people to go look at that framework. Don't be afraid of it. I think it's very friendly. There are a lot of sub bullet points. You can keep going dig much deeper. But at the very first level, just reading the 17 and thinking through where you might want to make an impact in your career and in your social entrepreneurship is a great start.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great, and I think that provides segue into another question. So I guess on that note, what do you guys think in the future question, or in what area, if you could pick one specific issue to tackle, what would it be, and like how would you tackle it?
I think the question was which sustainable goal would we pick, right? I want to make sure I got that right.
Yes. Okay. So I think my Wi-Fi cut off.
I missed part of the question too. I missed a little bit.
Yeah. So I guess essentially the question was, what should be like the top agenda item in future SDG discussions? Because it covers a wide range of like 17 goals across kind of like education, poverty, institutions.
I can go. First, I want to make two disclaimers. One, I can't believe I'm on this panel with these change makers because I'm a consultant at Deloitte. And I think something that Sarah mentioned at the beginning in terms of defining social entrepreneurship, she hit on something there in terms of, me working at Deloitte in strategy and ops as a consultant. It's not social entrepreneurship by any means, but I will say that I think where I can maybe add relevance is how I think all of the social entrepreneurship going on outside has influenced how Deloitte kind of goes to market and how Deloitte thinks about, it making its impact. So tying back to sort of your question, Rochelle, there's a whole sort of office, there's a whole host of people actually within Deloitte at all levels that think about, the sustainable goals, that think about how they can make and measure impact. And, the community that I'm a part of, that I co-lead, the New York Social Impact Community, we're sort of this umbrella around corporate citizenship, which Sarah, you're right, started as that corporate social responsibility, but has been sort of evolving more and more into how the work that we do and the work that we partner with as Deloitte Consulting can actually make tangible impact. And I can go into that a little bit later. But I guess the one top agenda, personally, selfishly, that I would really I have been able to push at Deloitte and that I've been able to do is quality education, which I think is goal number 4. It's something that just from my own personal experience, I don't think I would have been afforded the opportunities that I have if my parents had not gotten that education. If I hadn't gotten the opportunities that I have gotten, I think it's truly getting access to that education is so pivotal to social mobility. But and in that vein, at Deloitte, we've been able to sort of focus on those education-oriented missions, not only with partnering with nonprofits, but how, as Deloitte consultants, how can we use our skills to make that difference in the market? How can we, partner with educational institutions, around the globe? There's a whole higher education practice within Deloitte that's thinking about this a lot, and how do we push this agenda forward? So that's something I'm really passionate about.
Great, Susmitha. And I think we can also hear from Sarah and Jade because I also different perspectives.
I love that you asked what is the most important. The UN gods would definitely not want us to answer and rank these. I think we can go to Maslow's hierarchy of needs and say, man, food and shelter, without that, right? Without food and shelter, it's very hard to operate. But I think they're really set up so that you're not choosing between them. What's interesting is one of them is about partnership, which to me is just something that we need in the world, whereas many of the others are much more topical, right? Is it about gender equality? Is it about education? I think, we could debate all day what is the most important. My view is generally, what do you have an inclination around? What is so for instance, if you were a company and you're trying to figure out what should I get involved in, I always go back to what's your company's mission, right? So if you're in the water business, you might want to be thinking about life below water, right? So it's just life below land. So it's not, I don't think about ranking them. I'm curious if Jade does. Maybe Jade has them all secretly ranked. And she's already talked to the
I have a chart. No, okay.
We're gonna find out in a second. That's why she's going last, because she's got like a special ranking system. But my view is it's much more around what's relevant to you. That the UN has already decided that these 17 are relevant, and they are not ranked. Right? It is clear, and every time you kind of visually see them, the 1 through 17 that's also not meant. 1 is not meant to be 1, and 17 is not meant to be below it. So that's my view on what's most important, which is all of them.
I think all of them are so incredible. I think what you said, Sarah, was like the distinction between one being more important than the other versus like one just being something that intrinsically you're more passionate about maybe, or that your company literally aligns to in terms of your mission statement being what is advocating and taking action around. And I think because I actually, even with both individuals and companies that we partner with and artists that we're spotlighting, it's the question around like which SDG are you most passionate about? And I was kind of like, which SDG are you most passionate about in terms of your story being something that like it's ingrained in you to share information about that SDG. But I also can confidently say that sometimes the SDG that I'm passionate about changes daily. So it's kind of like that. More so with a company, it's one SDG than it is with an individual, because companies, I always say, don't have childhoods and individuals do. So it's like we have a lot of complex stuff. But I would say specifically with Entertainment for Change, something that I personally have been kind of focused in on is because our target audience right now is youth, specifically 7 to 17. and our age being the change, all of us, like all generations above that being the change, so that they see what that change looks like. I always say it starts from within. And I won't go on a passion tangent, but goal number 3, good health and well-being, specifically in the creative space, it's a lot of breaking apart what is, even with the global pandemic, like how you're feeling about it, what you're experiencing with it. And I believe that art allows us to kind of go inward to then externalize whatever that change, that draw it, write about it, and then you can share it with the world.
What's Deloitte? I'm curious. What's Deloitte say are their favorites?
I think they go through like I want to say annual refreshes. I actually don't know what it is for 2020. Sorry, I will double check that. But I know that from like a global, like their global office looks at like every year or every 3 years, they look at what goals they want to focus on, and then they make active efforts, whether it's the nonprofits that they're partnering with or the projects that they go into, what those focuses are. But I would say because of just like the mass capacity, there's sometimes offices that will tend to have focuses. So for example, for the past 2 years, the New York social impact community and corporate citizenship in the New York office has focused on education. But as I guess like personnel changes and people bring their own passions to the board, they can sort of change. I'm not sure in official capacity there. I can get back to you. There is one. I don't know it.
But they change every 3 years?
I want to say yes. Because I know that they go through, they pick it, and I think it's every. I want to say every 3 years because it could just be every year. Mm-hmm. They reevaluate, they look at it and measure impact every year.
Great. Thank you guys so much for answering the question and the really insightful additions. I think my internet might be cutting off again, but hopefully all good. So I guess we just got a question in the chat from Jesse, and he said, so to all panelists, in your opinion, are social entrepreneurs at a disadvantage competing in a commercial market with businesses that do not weigh the same factors in their strategy? Now, if so, how can they overcome this?
This is I find this to be a very classic MBA, BBA business school kind of question. I've been getting this question for a super long time. I spoke at a Net Impact conference. It feels like it must have been at least 10 years ago. And someone said, are you at disadvantage by like having an impact? And do you put it in your investor presentation that you want to have an impact? And I was like, wow, yes, it's a huge advantage. Because I think in a crowded market, being different is so important, and having a story is really important. Caring about your team and the world is really important. Having a mission statement is so important. And so I think it's a huge strategic advantage. And, again, we can debate this. I think in a world like our internet world where it's super transparent, like imagine in 1995, you couldn't just click, Google, Yahoo, and figure everything out, right? Now, 25 years later, boom, instant information. So I just think a consumer can very quickly find out if a company is evil, if a company is misbehaving, if a company has like kind of weird things going on behind the scenes. It's very easy to find out. 25 years ago, it wasn't that easy. So I just think we're also held to different standards in the marketplace. So why not uphold high standards? If you're going to be found out, and that's not why I do it. That's why I would challenge other companies that are evil as to why they have to do it. I do it because I believe in it, and I've been in the space a long time before it was cool, because I actually think that business can make a huge difference in the world. And obviously government makes a difference and nonprofits make a difference, but like I really believe the engine of business can make this social difference. So I find it to be an advantage.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think that this panel is even showing for it. Like, I think generationally speaking, the transparency is almost necessary. It's not, it's getting left behind at this point. It's like you almost, the values and the social entrepreneurship is I think beginning to become normalized as we move through. And I think 5-10 years down the line, it's going to be something that's like, you don't have that, it's a question mark around not having that at that point. So I think it's absolutely integral for that.
Great. And I guess just to follow up, Susmitha, do you have any opinions on it, kind of coming from more corporate background, or where do you see kind of like the strengths and kind of weaknesses of like social enterprises, or what challenges do you find they face?
I completely agree with what Jade and Sarah was saying. I think that you kind of have to think about it in that way, especially today. So I think, if I'm thinking about, some of the best leaders at Deloitte and the way that they think about how they go to market, they're thinking about, how the project that when we, work with a client, how that project is affecting the society or the community. So I can give you guys one example. So recently, I think I can disclose this, we were working with MasterCard on payments innovation. And a lot about, we were just talking, in general about where that future is headed in terms of payments innovation. And one of the focuses of MasterCard and Deloitte that we were thinking about is how does payments innovation help the base of pyramid sort of customer or segment. And it's actually, it's not something that MasterCard is doing out of the goodness of their hearts. It is because the new digital capabilities, the new innovation allows for MasterCard to unlock these customer segments. It's actually, there's a business case for going into those markets. There is profit there that they're looking at it. And they're also recognizing and able to think about, how much impact or what that could mean, for financial empowerment, for financial inclusion, for these base of pyramid players. So I thought that was really cool because, when I was in those conversations, it was, yes, everyone was aware of this social responsibility, but it was almost all in the terms of, this is truly where the profit is. This is truly where the business case and the value prop really is. So that there's your one example for why I think that, this idea of social entrepreneurship is definitely going to be an asset.
Great. Susmitha, thank you so much for your input. So we had a message in the broad chat from Jordan, and he asked, so what interesting business opportunities do you foresee in the next 10 to 15 years that lie at the intersection between entrepreneurship and the SDGs? And I guess we can leave it open to all panelists. Or if you want to take some time, we can also come back to it.
Yeah, the only thought on that, in my work that I'm committed to of sharing the SDGs and bringing awareness to them, I shared a YouTube link of the song we created. So if you want to memorize the SDGs, you learn the dance move, you learn all the lyrics, and all the SDGs are in order. So it's like the Bone Dance from Hannah Montana or Schoolhouse Rock, kind of that world. But yeah, I think for me, I'm super passionate about bringing light to them and just sharing it with especially kids, just so they can actually integrate it into social entrepreneurship and beyond.
I love this question. It's so broad. It's almost like, what interesting business opportunities don't you see? So I think this to me goes much more back to what is the entrepreneur passionate about and interested in? Because when you're starting a company, it's very 24/7. And so the idea that you're gonna work on gender equality, but you don't really care about it, is like really not going to make sense. So is there a lot of opportunity around gender equality? Of course. Health and well-being, massive. Life above land, huge. Life below land, like there's just so much opportunity to make a difference in the world that to say where you should focus is I think much more related to what is your inner passion and what are you interested in and what do you read about, what are you drawn to, what keeps you up at night, what wakes you up in the morning. Like these are the questions that I would ask.
Great. And I think we can definitely revisit that passion conversation kind of later on in the Q&A session. We have another question from Adam directed at Susmitha. So he was wondering how Deloitte enables employees to participate in the educational programs that you mentioned. Like specifically, is there time to focus on socially conscious projects like this, in addition to your day-to-day responsibilities?
The answer to that is 100% yes. There's tons of ways and the cool thing about, so I think I was having this discussion with actually one of the Deloitte partners very recently, and I said, hey, why there's so many opportunities to get like partner with nonprofits. We have something called the Monitor Institute that focuses on working with higher education or like nonprofits as an actual product. You can even go and make the case to work with a nonprofit or a cause and turn it into a project. I had a friend who who partnered with the Tent Partnership for Refugees and help them do a consulting project for them. So it's as little as or as much as you want. And when I was talking to that partner, I said, hey, is it truly just for like brand awareness? Is it for that like social capital good that we're doing all of this? And he plainly said, he's like, no, absolutely not. The true selfishness of it, one of the biggest assets of Deloitte is that it's people. And this huge opportunity that we have in things like skills-based volunteering, as we call it, it's actually, a way for Deloitte to, give that hands-on training to their junior practitioners. It's a way for them to go and interact and do these projects and get all of this experience that they actually typically would spend tons of dollars on for like formal training that they would be able to get in a relatively safer environment. So I think that is why there's so many opportunities at Deloitte, and it's great from like our perspective because it really is that mutually beneficial relationship. I think some of the most rigorous sort of experiences that I've had, some of the most stretch roles that I've had were in that pro bono capacity where I was working nonprofits. I didn't have managers or senior managers or partners sort of giving me cover and guiding me along the way. I was sort of left to step up and take on that role. And as a result, I think I learned so much better and able to deliver a lot more on my client work. I don't know if that answered your question.
Great, Sweetriot. It's really helpful. I guess kind of switching gears, I wanted to talk a bit about advocacy. So I guess from a social entrepreneurship perspective or even from a corporate perspective, how can we advocate effectively, or how can we create a sense of community that can rally behind a social cause? Do you have any prior experiences where you find that a certain method has been successful, or how would you generally approach kind of this advocacy?
Advocacy. It's like, where do I start? I feel like for me, in specifically as a social entrepreneur, if you're like starting something from scratch, to surround yourself with people who see the vision that you see, and you all can share that together in a very genuine way. It's not like you're telling someone, because the how is going to change all of the time. So if you're all centered in the why, I think surrounding yourself with people who just get this sense of sharing that why together just makes it easier and makes the journey fun, and also just makes it easier to get there because you're more effective in the way you communicate with one another. And then you can advocate together because everybody's going to have their own point of view, and everybody's going to have their own perspective, and everybody's going to have their own story, and everybody's going to have their own passion, and everybody's going to wake up in a different bed. So like they're going to sleep differently. There's so many layers on top of it. So what advocacy can mean is this collective vision for me. And I think if that's like shared and there's a manifesto around it, or however you want to kind of express that to your team, but also to yourself, it makes advocacy much more clear, and it also makes it that much more fun and that much more effective in what you're advocating for and then how you're advocating for it.
To me, it's again kind of rooted in authenticity. So thing because of the transparency we were talking about earlier, which is when companies kind of get involved in things they don't really care about, people will figure it out. So I think having the right people standing up and speaking about what you're involved in matters. Having internal teams involved in the issue matters. Doing true service around an issue matters. And making sure it's something that your company or your organization really cares about. Because I think just grabbing like one of the 17 and saying, oh, we should really do that, can backfire if it's not within a reason. So for instance, let's say, what was the company? I think when Black Lives Matter started, some companies were out kind of like very quickly, like making statements. And literally people would say, then why is like your entire management team like white guys? Literally, they got called on it because they started to try and activate around things, and they were not walking the talk. The same thing would happen if a company said, hey, I really stand for gender equality, but like we've got no women on our corporate board. It's like, that's interesting. So I just think companies need to be really careful. And then when they decide that's their issue or their UN SDG or whatever it may be, they really got to be ready to back it up. Because in this transparent world, people are going to call you on it.
And I guess the only thing I'll add to those two statements is in terms of how any one of us can get there and truly be an advocate. I mean, I really think about it in 3 stages, right? It's first getting aware, but then getting educated. Like truly understand. When Jade was talking about what is that why, like learn, right? Go and speak to people. Go and get educated. We actually in social impact community, we literally think about in those 3 phases. We have events around awareness and education, and then it's like actually get engaged, truly get involved and see for yourself and understand and understand from your perspective why this matters and why this is an issue. And then it's that last stage is then once you feel prepared and ready, then become that advocate, then go out and be that champion. But I think without doing that awareness and education, you lose out on that authenticity that Sarah was talking about.
Great. I think those are all like really great points on authenticity, kind of finding your passion and being able to work around that. It seems we have Sarah who just sent a question in the chat, and she said, what's the role of governments, corporations, NGOs, and institutions in contributing to the social enterprise ecosystem? And I guess any panelist can start.
I would just say partnership is the name of the game, right? Like it is about partnership. And so when I read that question, thank you, Sarah, because we love fellow Sarahs with an H. Excellent name. So we I just think think it takes a village. This is not a loner game at all. For startup company, it's not about working alone. For a large company, I think Susmitha has a great example of she's learning from other organizations and going and doing work with a nonprofit because there's learning everywhere. And we need to lift each other. And certainly during COVID, we need to lift each other, but like it's always been that way. That there's got to be, a win-win kind of situation created. And again, it doesn't mean everyone's supposed to partner with everyone. It's that on a very kind of careful basis, you find the right players that care about the same issues and you work.
Great. And I guess, Jade, do you want to add anything?
In the awareness and education, just like putting spotlight on it, because I think especially with governments, corporations, NGOs, and having this ecosystem also be so rooted in social media right now, there's such an opportunity to constantly be educating and bringing awareness to things. And so I do think that if you haven't seen The Social Dilemma, it's wild that we live in this reality, but I do believe that if we're going to use social media, you at least use it for education, awareness, positivity, not in a toxic way, but just in a way that sparks light. And so I would say that's a huge vehicle for us and for people.
Good point. And I think just to dive a bit deeper, because I know you have your experiences with like social enterprise and Jade also with your nonprofit. So do you have any specific examples of the way partnerships have enabled like your organizations to succeed?
I'll start. So I'll with Sweetriot. Whole Foods is, I can't speak to them today after their Amazon purchase, but when we started working with them in our second month of business, they were very open to the fact that we were a startup. They really wanted to support our growth. They gave us plenty of time to, demo and kind of share our products at their stores. I can remember at one point they did a campaign where they had, huge banners in their windows of different interesting, innovative small businesses, and we were one of them featured. And so they were truly a partner. They weren't just like, hey, put your product in our store. They really wanted to support small, interesting businesses that were committed to their mission. And they found you. If they felt that you were innovative, aligned, a good example for them to put forward, they definitely were a partner. And they didn't make you feel like, hey, you're the small startup and we're the big corporation. They embraced you and wanted to kind of hold you up. So I think Whole Foods, in their, again, I can't speak to them today, but in their former style of partnering, were very active in lifting up smaller companies.
Yeah, I would say in the spirit of sharing transparently, I think that there's a lot about the entertainment industry that needs to be shifted and changed in terms of just Hollywood and entertainment standards and how people are treated and such. So as a nonprofit called Entertainment for Change, most of what our partnerships, vision-wise, looking to partner, we have a lot of corporate sponsor opportunities to that align, B Corp specifically, that align to kind of our mission and our core values. So most of our partnerships are with individuals, but as cheesy as it is, we really try to be that next shift and be the change we wish to see as far as a partner that is exemplifying what we want to see in specifically the entertainment field.
Great, thanks, Jade. And I guess kind of looking at the other side, Susmitha, how Deloitte approach partnerships with nonprofits? I guess through your because based on your experience co-leading their social impact community.
Yeah, I'm wary to use the word partnership because I don't know. So Deloitte does a ton of quote unquote partnerships with I guess nonprofits for these like big causes that they do. But I guess like the thing that I can speak to is we tend to work a lot with nonprofits hands-on, and we view the nonprofits as more clients. And say, hey, like, what can we do to help you? Like, what is, what is a problem that you're facing today that we can help, using our skills and our experience to fill those gaps or help get directionally thinking in the right way. And it goes back to, I think Sarah said in the very beginning, at the end of the day, a lot of these organizations, NGOs, governments, like the best ones do sort of operate like some of the best run businesses. And oftentimes there are a lot of the similar issues. And I think, working, having all of the experience working like on the client side, you can really take a lot of that experience into that nonprofit space and things that, I think that, that may seem obvious. It doesn't become obvious until you like really lay it out and talk about, especially with nonprofits, because, I think one of the biggest things that we've tackled is a lot of people are so emotionally connected to their mission and their causes. It's hard when we're trying to, redesign their portfolio and say, hey, like maybe we need to hone down that focus onto this one thing instead of these 5 things. And it's hard because it means letting things go. But how can they be more effective and helping them get to thinking that way? So when I say partnership, that's the only thing I can speak to is working with them and taking the learnings that I've learned on client side into the nonprofit and vice versa, right? And there's learnings from the nonprofit world that I think you can sometimes even take to business.
Great, and I think to your point, I think sometimes the nonprofit world and kind of like the corporate world gets separated into like 2 different entities. So I was curious, like in your opinion, what do you think are common challenges, or how would you differentiate between like the challenges faced by nonprofits versus corporations, and kind of what can, as students entering the workforce or looking at different companies, what do you think they should know about the differences?
I've worked in both, and I think, you have talent challenges in both. You have funding challenges in both. And the biggest distinction really is business model, typically, right? You're in a 501c3, a traditional nonprofit. You might have some earned income, but you're probably operating more around kind of your social mission, your cause, and your grants. Whereas in a corporation, your revenue may be based around your professional services or the products that you're selling. So it's just your structure is different, but you're still trying to find the right people, get them in the right structure with the right management, with the right organizational setup. That happens in both types of organizations. You want to have the right financial model and funding for your organization. So, I just think it's more, again, for someone making a choice between the two, it's really, I think, what are you driven by? And one of my nonprofit roles out of college was working for an organization that was teaching entrepreneurship to inner city youth. It was very businessy, let's say, but just because of its mission of working on, inner city youth and youth in poverty, we happen to be a nonprofit. You could have maybe looked at what we were doing in entrepreneurship education and said we could put a for-profit structure around it. To me, it's sometimes not even important what the structure is, but rather what do you want to work on and what are you passionate about?
Great. And I think we have a question from Alan in the chat. So he asks, what do you think is one of the biggest takeaways from working in nonprofit sector, I guess, or social enterprise sector? How is the business culture environment like compared to private things? And I think, Sarah, you can probably speak to this because you have experiences on both sides.
Yeah, I think, if you're going to work for a nonprofit, you want to work for one that is very well run and where they believe in having a sustainable model. You don't want to work for a nonprofit where they're like, we have a mission and, business doesn't matter. Structure does matter. Leadership matters. Having a financial model matters. So if you are going to go down the nonprofit road, you want to go down one that's actually really well run. And to me, one of the biggest differences is, I don't know, I build B Corps, so we're very mission first. But in a typical maybe corporate America structure, the nonprofit's going to be hardcore mission first, and maybe at the company every day, you're not going to hear about the mission. I think what's different is B Corp kind of comes down the center somewhere, and at B Corps, we talk about mission a lot. It's in the job postings, it's on the website, it's just different because that's the B Corp structure has this social impact side woven into it. So you've got a spectrum of things you've got.
And I think, Sarah, just as a clarifying point to our attendees, do you mind clarifying what a B Corp is and how that kind of differs from C Corps or like LLCs?
Yeah, it is a legal structure, and I'm noticing the time. I think we're supposed to end at 7, but the B Corp is actually a legal structure. So you can structure as a B Corp, and it means within your mission and within your legal paperwork, you care about your community, and it is a certification that is a very rigorous process of analyzing how do you treat your employees, what are your products and services, how do you, work with the community, et cetera, and it gives you a score that says you can officially be a B Corp.
Great, and I think we're set till 7:30. Okay. If you have to drop off early, that's totally fine. And I guess just kind of looking at questions. How can students partake and contribute to the movement? So kind of looking at this college student base, what are steps that we can take? I guess either just towards contributing to SDGs or just broadly speaking in our career.
I can start. I think this is something that I think about. I think one of my biggest concerns getting into Deloitte was, my gosh, am I going to be a corporate sellout? Just going into the consulting world, just gonna get absorbed in this huge company, and I really realized how. I was really lucky to find all about finding the people that are like-minded, that think like you. I'm not going to say every single person at Deloitte is social impact first focused, but there is a really strong community within Deloitte, a very vocal community, I would say. Happened to run into my first days at the firm that are passionate about this, and I think they made it really easy for me to see all of the different opportunities for me to stay involved, for me to, take my passions that I've had before college and continue to pursue them, and the skills that I'm, developing in my day job, how can I apply them to the things that I'm passionate about? So, I think I've been incredibly lucky in that, I was able to say, hey, I'm really passionate about, education, and, the way that Deloitte worked, the way that social impact community worked, it allowed me to partner with education-oriented commissions, and it was really seamless for me to take my client work and a lot of the digital transformation or op model transformation, that work that I do, and say, hey, okay, how can I use what I learned here to help you, Minds Matter, or to help you, Mouse.org, and that was the coolest thing, and I think I learned. I learned that it really doesn't have to be, this or that.
Great. Thanks so much, Susmitha. And I guess we have another question from Veronica. She's asking, so coming from a school that's so finance-based, it can be hard to prioritize sustainability when picking her future career. Do you have any suggestions for dealing with it, or how did you guys find your center? So I guess it kind of touches upon like the passion that Sarah mentioned earlier.
This is such an important question because I think, when I was at Harvard Business School, there's so much going on that I always said part of the magic is to figure out how to say no, right? So, how to practice JOMO, the joy of missing out. And it's really hard. Now, it's really funky during COVID. I don't even know how to practice FOMO, JOMO. It's but I will say that I tried to practice that as a student to figure out when you saw this list of all these things going on, what were you drawn to attend and what weren't you? And how did you rank them? And how did you try to think through what conference do I want to go to? What speaker do I want to hear? And just start to kind of, in a way, follow what you're selecting and think through what you're drawn to and what you're not. And it can be actually a really simple process. If it's like, what articles are you reading in the newspaper around you, right? What are you saying no to and what are you saying yes to? And trying to just get back to, Rochelle just used the word center, right? So getting towards your center of what's in the yes camp, what's in the maybe camp, what's in the no camp, what's in the curiosity camp. And trying to get to what you're interested in.
And I will just add, and I understand, by the way, I'm saying this as going into consulting, and like the two biggest buckets in students, you go to finance or investment banking and consulting. But with that said, I would say just be active about, exploring those other career opportunities. And, it doesn't have to be social entrepreneurship. Maybe it's something else. But know that, I say this to everyone and no one believes me, but know that, when you talk to someone, when you look at when you talk to the people, and you kind of know, okay, I can really see myself here. I can really see, I can get behind this mission that they're kind of working towards, and it's truly there in those conversations. And I think don't be afraid to take that risk. You guys are all, from NYU, a great college. Like, you guys are going to be fine no matter where you end up. Like, even if that first step out of college isn't maybe the right one, you can change anytime that you want. But I think that's the biggest advice is don't be afraid to go out of those two lanes and explore.
And I think Alan just asked a follow-up kind of relating to that, in that he's asking if you could redo your business career from the beginning. I guess this is directed at all panelists. Would there be any changes that you would make, knowing kind of that social entrepreneurship is the end goal?
I love this question. Ellen, thank you for being so active. I don't know that there is a right answer to how to let your career play out. I wouldn't redo anything because I was always making choices based on interest and passion, and I don't look back at it and think, why did you do this or why did you do that? It's just, it kind of unfolds. And one thing I will say that I always say to whether it's new people working with me or students that I'm talking to at Harvard or NYU or anywhere, which is you manage your career. No one's managing it for you. There's no even when you join a big company, they're not managing your career. You are. And so you can always go into a place and leave it, right, if it's not right for you. And one thing that I can remember my Harvard professors used to say to me, listen, it's a summer internship, just take it. And even if it leads to a no, that's okay too. It means you've had an experience and it's helped you move towards a no in your career. And with every project you do, which I did a ton of projects when I was a student on campus, field studies and business plans and all these different things, it helped me often decide, wow, I'm not interested in that industry. Right. I really love this and I don't love that. And so I don't think there's one answer to the road you're supposed to take. But I do think getting out there, doing projects, taking internships, and getting exposure will really help you. And the other thing I always say is you're really joining a team, you're joining a culture. This idea that you're joining a job, it's actually you're joining the team and the culture more than you're joining a job.
Yeah. Please.
No, go ahead, Jade.
It's like dating. You're not getting married to someone on the first date. You're just dating them. I think it's easier said than done sometimes. It's really easy to picture your future with them, and then you want to immediately jump right in. But I think it's really it's grounding for me and finding my core and kind of the recognition that really, as again cheesy as it is, but it's really about the journey. Like it really is, because there is no, ideally the SDGs is where we want to get to, right? It's like being conscious of the SDGs, having awareness and education and consistency around these SDGs. But to get there, it's collaboration. It's so something that roots me and brings me into my core is kind of having that passion and purpose of, specifically for me with art and advocacy, I'm really passionate about figuring out different creative techniques in how information is shared with people and how it's communicated with people in creative and artistic endeavors. And I can speak about that for the next 45 minutes, and I'm not going to. But I have chosen to do that in my life. Granted, I am in the entrepreneurial space and didn't necessarily walk into a culture. I'm more so wanting to create that culture. But I think regardless, it's very much about that. It's very much stepping into your life. Like you're going there day to day. If you're marrying that person, you're going to see them every day. So that's what you're signing up for. So.
And I would just kind of echo, and I apologize for hammering this continuously home. I wouldn't say redo, what I would redo, but what I wish, I think things have worked out for me, but what I wish I had a different mindset when I was recruiting at NYU Stern is, I think when we recruit at Stern, it's always, I'm basically, it's almost like we're pandering to the company. But you have your own goals and wants, right? I think I would strongly recommend, and I know it's hard, is changing your mindset to what can this company offer me, not the other way around, right? Like especially, I know all too well those giant info sessions where we're going to that one recruiter, when you're asking those questions, truly, what do you want? What do you care about? And can those company meet your needs? And that's going to get to, I think, what Jade is talking about in terms of your culture, and really helps you get to know that company a bit more, rather than, what can you offer the company? You can do that during interviews, but yeah.
Great. And I think just to kind of people attending, send in any last questions. I think we'd love to hear from you. And then if not, we can just start to wrap up. So I guess I'll hold off for a minute, or I can ask.
I'd love to share one little tidbit of information for students. So in entrepreneurship, so I always joke when I graduated, I was like, I'm going to go to New York City and I'm going to do all of the things that everybody says doesn't make any money. I'm going to be an activist and an entrepreneur and an artist. Let's see how this goes. So I really, I was on a panel at Boston University once called How to Follow Your Dreams But Also Pay Your Rent. And I loved it because it was breaking down the transparent reality of that question around how do you, especially if you're out of school in which it's constantly shared that you need to go into this or you feel like you should, or whatever reason, or if you love it, great, awesome. So, but the distinction between trying to figure out ways in which you can still do what you love and make money is hard. So I just wanted to say that because it's going to take sometimes maybe a lot of coaching. Like I'm still getting coaching around it, and I've had a nonprofit organization for 4 years. It is finding your tribe and your like-minded people who are going to hold a safe space for you to mess up and fail and try new things. So I just wanted to like say that and turn it not being glamorized, and being an entrepreneur is really exciting and really rewarding in like the most profound way. But it's difficult, but I think it's exciting. And I think if you go into it with the perspective of like, this is my life, this is exciting and I love it, then the hardships aren't outweighing the excitement. It's just part of the experience.
That's great, Jade. And that's it. You know, Rochelle said, say something about internships. And I would just say in general, projects, internships around social entrepreneurship will lead you to your answers of yes or no. So I put my email in the chat. We're always opening up projects for students, student teams, individual students, internships. I like to really talk to someone personally and figure out what they're interested in, and you know what is someday their dream job, and then try to craft something that will be really meaningful for you. So super open to you emailing me and saying, hey, I really want to do something this fall, I want to learn more. And that's the best way, I think, to keep moving on this career path.
And so I would add in Stern, so I actually did this. I got a Stern social impact stipend during one of my internships where I worked with a social impact startup. It was one of the coolest experiences, truly, that I've had. And so I would encourage you along those same lines to like look at opportunities that Stern, NYU, just other people offer to get credit or get a little help if you're interning at those places. And it's also when you get those types of stipends and stuff, it's not just a stipend. It's almost, you have to go through a whole lengthy application, and it's sort of an experience, and it adds to your resume as well when you're going out and recruiting. So it can only help.
Great. And I guess, are there any other last words from our panelists? I think, yeah, you guys.
Social entrepreneurship is awesome. You should try it out.
Do what you love. Do what you love, and love what you do.
Well, thank you so much. And I guess we can kind of close it at that. Thank you guys so much for coming and joining our panel tonight. It was really, really exciting conversation. I'm glad that we could build on the discussion on social entrepreneurship, and we could hear your perspectives just kind of all across the board, like across different causes and different career experiences and career journeys. So I guess on behalf of BFE, we'd like to thank you all so much for joining our panel today. And I guess your emails are in the chat, I guess, if anyone wants to reach out. And yeah, thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Stay safe, everyone. Wash your hands. Stay safe.
Bye, guys. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.